Hey guys, my name is Marta, welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be recommending you a series of books to help you transition from your summer to your autumn reading. I am someone who really loves to read seasonally, so to pick up books that have something that reminds me of the season we are in, and as we are nearly approaching September, I thought it would be a nice idea to share with you a series of books that I think are perfect for this transitionary period between your summer reading to your autumn reading. Some of these I've read recently and others I read years ago, so my synopsis might be a bit brief, but believe me when I say that these books are perfect for this time of the year. When it comes to the order I'm going to present them to you, I've tried to order them so that there's something in common going from one book to the other, but the theme might not be super evident in some cases, so I will try to say what it is when I go from speaking about one book to speaking about another. So yeah, I guess that without further ado, let's get into my recommendations. The first two books that I will recommend you are two texts that are perfect for this transitionary period because they are gothic/horror stories set near the water. The first one is Daphne du Maurier's Frenchman's Creek. I read this in 2020, I think, or 2021, so a long time ago, and I do not remember much about it, but I guess I can give you a very brief synopsis so you understand what I mean by that. This is a piece of historical fiction set in the Restoration period, and in it we follow this woman who moves to Cornwall and who there meets this crew of pirates between which she finds a man she falls in love with. This is an adventure story set in this very gloomy town that is filled with dangers that come with the pirate scene, and it incorporates very gothic and atmospheric elements that Daphne du Maurier excels in writing about in all of her texts, as well as this romance story between our main protagonist and this pirate she meets there. I remember really enjoying this, however I have not read it in many years, so I cannot speak about how I would feel now, but I think that if you like adventure stories, if you are looking for something that is very fun to read and that mixes these adventure tales that are usually read in the summer with something more gothic and dark, this might as well be the book for you. The second book or short story, since it's technically a short story but it tends to be incorporated in books alongside other texts by the author, is this French classic called Les Horla by Guy de Maupassant, and translated to English as The Orla. I have the French edition, but it's been widely translated to English. I think there's a Penguin's Classics edition of the text alongside other stories by Maupassant, but I might be wrong. If it's not Penguin, it's Oxford. Anyway, let's move on to the synopsis. This is a horror short story in which we follow this character who claims to have been possessed by this invisible creature that came from this Brazilian ship. Like the book I presented before, this is also set by the sea, so that's the linking point between both of them. It's a classic text from the late 19th century, so this whole monster creature coming from the outside is reminiscent of the trend of psychic vampires that was going on at the time in literature, as well as of this fear of the other coming to Europe that we see represented in other classics such as the famous Dracula. The interesting part of the book, however, it's not that racist under theme of the story, but the way it's written. The book is written like our main character's diary, so we see how his madness is depicted in his writing style and in the way he expresses himself. This text is your perfect summer into autumn reading because of its setting and because of its incorporation too of horror themes. And if you like it, Maupassant has a lot of other short stories that deal with similar gothic tales that are usually incorporated into the same collections, so you might as well want to check out those. I cannot speak much about this without getting into any spoilers, but if you're feeling like reading something dark but that you can't really trust, read this. The next book is one I read earlier in the year, and it connects with the previous one because of its isolated setting, and it is The Wall by Marlene Hochhofer. I don't know if I mispronounced that surname, I am so sorry. This is a German classic in which we follow this woman who stays at this house and one day wakes up and realizes that this dome has appeared around the area she's in, and she's been left there alone to live with a dog and a cow, and she has to survive by those means and with the few resources she can find in these mountains. She is now forced to live in for the foreseeable future. This, as you can guess by the synopsis, is a dystopian novel, but it's not your usual dystopian text, since it doesn't deal with these powerful governments that seek to destroy our lives as we know it. It's instead a much more quieter dystopian text in which we can really read about the individual's connections with nature and with our surroundings. This is also a very devastating text to read. It follows our main character surviving in this context for a number of years, and we see her experience loss, illness, and having to survive in these conditions that are at some points incredibly hard. It's also a text that is very quiet, so it's not one, as I said, it's about a character that's alone, so there's not dialogue in it, and it's a text that overall is not one that you will want to speed through. When it comes to why I consider it the perfect text for transition from summer into autumn, it is because we see our main character survive the 4 seasons of the year quite a lot of times, so we see time pass and the hardships she has to go through depending on the season she's in. It's also a book about time passing in a way, and that really relates to some people's feelings in this changing season, since as the leaves fall, lots of us think and reflect on time going by. Highly recommendable, by the way, incredibly sad, but one of my favorite reads of the year so far. So if there's one text you absolutely need to read from this list, please pick up The Wall. The next book I have here to recommend you is one that I also read this year, and I don't know if it has been published in the US yet, but I know it has in the UK because I got it when I went to Paris, so it must have been published somewhere in Europe, and it is Will MacLean's Solace House. This is, as the blurb suggests, the perfect mix of the secret history and the haunting of Hill House. In this book we follow our main character who cannot go back home for the summer, so he ends up moving to this area in which they are going to construct a new residence halls for his university, and there him and a group of other young people are meant to clean first the halls of what used to be an asylum, and then this very mysterious old Victorian house named Solace House, as the title of the book suggests. As the characters enter this house, they find that it's a complete mess, that the person living there had probably some sort of mental illness, since it is completely cluttered. Moreover, as the book goes on and the characters start cleaning the house, they begin to find these strange things. There are these very dark and mysterious paintings. There is also this collection of notebooks with very strange things written on that have to do with traveling to probably other dimensions. Our main character and another one of the guys staying there begin to get very obsessed with what's going on there. And as they start to dig more into the whole story of this house and the people who once lived in it, things start to get very weird. I cannot say much about this book without giving away many spoilers, because I read it very recently, so all I want to do is discuss the plot. Anyway, you are going to have to trust me and read this book, and because it is set in the summer, but it has this academic setting, it has this set of characters that are very peculiar and that as a group are in a way very reminiscent of the protagonists in The Secret History. And it's a tale of mystery and of adventure in a way, and it's very fun to read. I couldn't stop reading it once when I started it. It's also a story that talks a lot about art, because my characters see a lot of similarities between this individual who lived in the house and the mad Victorian painter Richard Dadd, who is known for his fairy paintings that he painted while staying in the asylum. In fact, there is a lot of influence of that painter's story embedded in the text, so I highly encourage you to research that painter if you read this. A book that I have seen absolutely nobody talk about, but that I would love to talk about with anyone. So if you've read this, please talk with me about it. I'm still thinking about these characters, and I would really love to see this adapted into a TV series. Not a movie, because there's a lot going on that I think would benefit from a lot of episodes. But yeah, please read this. If it hasn't come out yet where you live, be on the lookout for when it does. Read it and tell me thank you when you do and discover this very fun story, perfect for the last days of the summer. Like the book I just talked about, this one is also in this academic setting, at least at the beginning, and it's also one that I read recently, and it is Evelyn Vaughan's Brideshead Revisited. I have been meaning to read this text for the longest time. This is a book that is known for being the Oxford novel, and in it we follow this soldier who arrives at this place, Brideshead, where he was a lot of years ago. And as he gets there, he sees the building, he starts reminiscing about the past and about his life in Brideshead when he was just a little boy getting into university. This is a very gorgeously written novel that perfectly encapsulates the feeling of summer being a joyful time of the year for some people, not for me, and autumn being this darker and sadder time period, since as the book goes on and as the characters grow up, the story starts to get more sad and darker, and the characters start to deal with some more heavy problems. This book also features this queer-ish relationship between our main character and narrator and a friend of his named Sebastian, who he meets at Oxford and who introduces him to Brideshead, since that is technically his home. Nevertheless, as time passes, Sebastian grows apart with his family at Brideshead, and our main character is the one who really gets to experience Brideshead as a place. This is a modern classic, so it's mainly about the characters' evolution as individuals, so there is not much else I can say about the book. But if you like texts that are very hard and sad to read, but that are also set in academic settings, I think that if you like dark academia, you are probably going to really like this book, because even though the campus part of the story only takes place for the first pages of the book, once you move on from that setting, you will be in love with the characters and with the story, and you will like to continue. This is also, in my opinion, the spiritual successor of the book that I am going to mention next. So as I just hinted at, the book that I'm going to mention now also takes place, at least at the beginning of the story, in an academic setting, and it is Ian Forster's Maurice. This is Ian Forster's gay novel that was not published until the author himself died. It is a book in which we follow Maurice Hall, who falls in love with this man while they are both studying at Cambridge. If the other one is the Oxford novel, this is the Cambridge novel to me. It's a book that, like the one before, is one of those classics that get recommended once you look up dark academia book recommendations. It's a very sad story like the one before. It's a book that deals with identity, especially with recognizing your own sexual identity as someone who's a part of a minority. It's a book that it's perfect to transition from summer into autumn for the academic setting, and also for the sadness of the themes. I think like books that incorporate sadness are very autumnal in my mind. And it's also, and to me there's also something about coming of age stories that is very summer into autumn. That might be just me, but to me it is. And yeah, this is a very short book as well, so perfect if you are craving something short. The movie is also excellent, so if you've read the movie, read the book. If you've read the book, watch the movie. Again, very nice read. Also, I'm going to say, if you want more queer stories, but you want, instead of gay men, lesbian women, you have to read the next book that I am going to recommend you. Because the last book I'm going to recommend you today is one that is also set in this academic setting. It's also one that I define as a coming of age story. Maurice is not technically a coming of age story, but since it's a tale of sexual discovery, to me it is. But this one is clearly a coming of age story since we deal with teenagers. It's a very short novella. It's by a Swiss author, I think, and it is Fleur Jaeggy's The Sweet Taste of Discipline. My edition is translated to Spanish because I read this in my first year of university, so I had to read it in Spanish. Also, I'm Spanish, so there's no reason for me to buy books translated to English if they are translated to Spanish. But anyway, this is a very short story in which we follow our narrator who lives and studies in this all-girls boarding school and who reflects upon the world around her. She talks about the buildings, she talks about the people she meets there, and one day this new girl comes in and she starts to get a bit obsessed with her. She starts to really hate her, but at the same time she cannot stop thinking about her. It's a story about infatuation, about obsession. It's a very short read, but one that won't leave you indifferent. You might hate it, because the character is not the most likable person. In fact, he is quite reminiscent of the protagonist of... Where is it? this one that I read recently, Elspeth Parker's O Caledonia. I think that if you like this, you might as well read this, or vice versa. Like the books before, this is set in an academic setting, so to me, perfect for the autumn. It incorporates coming of age elements, something I also associate with this season, and it's very short, so there's no excuse for you not to read it. I guess that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please tell me if you've read any of these and what were your thoughts on them. Tell me if you also like reading seasonally, and if you have any other book recommendations that you think are perfect for the period between summer and autumn. And also comment down below, what are you reading right now? What are you reading to transition from summer into autumn? Because I'm currently trying to figure out what I want to read myself. I might reread Maurice, because since I've thought about it, I now really want to reread it, and I might as well reread Flor Yegi's The Sweet Days of Discipline, which I just talked about a few seconds ago, but I don't know what else to pick up. So if you have any recommendations, just tell me. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one.